Hello, my name is Hilary Rose and you're listening to the Live Wild podcast. On today's episode, I speak to retired Detective Chief Superintendent Pat Lordan. Pat has spent many years as the head of the National Economic Crime Bureau. He's investigated cybercrime, fraud, money laundering and organised crime. And even though he's now retired, he still helps to raise awareness to prevent online crime. We chat about romance fraud, online crime, and the possibility that your teenager may be acting as a money mule.
61% of parents, and this is really calling out parents that listen to your podcast, Hilary. 61% of parents have never mentioned this to their children. Never. They've never mentioned the dangers of allowing somebody else to have access to your bank account. They've never said to them, don't let anybody put money into your bank account because it's traceable back to you. Now, the other startling figure that came out of that was that about 50% of the 18 to 24-year-olds have either been approached by these criminals or their friends or their organisers to become a money mule. Now, what do they get in return if you become a money mule? You might get a couple of €100. You might get the cost of a new phone. You might get a new jacket. They'll sell you or offer to give you something small, but you need the money, you're in college, and you take a chance on it. What I would urge people is please don't, because that €20,000 that you've let go into your account has been attained by this organised crime group by way of fraud, by way of romance fraud, or something more sinister. It could be drugs money, you don't know. You have no idea where it's coming from.
This chat absolutely blew me away, and it really opened my eyes to what can happen to your financial security online and indeed your loved ones if you or they are not careful. Have a listen. Today on the Live Well podcast, I have Pat Lordan, retired Detective Chief Superintendent, former head of the Garda National Economic Crime Bureau. My goodness, what a podcast it's going to be today.
Hello, Hilary. How are you? Thank you very much for the welcome.
I'm great. Thank you so much. And thanks so much for coming on because we have so much to cover. I think it's going to be difficult to cover everything. I would love to start, if it's okay with you, with romance fraud. Some people call it catfishing. I think there's a term called pig butchering as well. Can you explain what it is? What is romance fraud?
Yeah, romance fraud really, Hilary, is where somebody starts a romantic relationship online with somebody. It can be male or female. And there is a bit of a myth out there that it's only females fall for this crime, but that's definitely not true. Over the years, we've seen a lot of male men, young and old, fall for this as well. But credit to the ladies out there. They're more up for reporting this type of crime than the male folk out there. So what it is really is, if I may use you as an example, Hilary, you're bored, you've split up, you want a new relationship, you want a new type of life. You go online, you go on something like apparently Tinder, Plenty of Fish, any of the websites really, and you go searching for Mr. Right. And obviously you find Pat online who looks okay, nice picture. He does a bit of hiking, he does a bit of sailing. He reads books, he goes on holidays, and you're going, wow, this fella looks okay. And you click on him. And really, the only reason that he suits your profile is that these criminals have already done a lot of research on you. So they've built types of profiles that fit certain women and men that are out there. Once you click on that and you make contact with Pat out there in the real big bad world, Pat now has you hooked for a few minutes. And he has an opportunity to sell himself to you. So very quickly, once he does that, he'll get you off the normal networks. He'll get you onto WhatsApp or FaceTime or something. And he spends 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, months even, convincing you that he's the right person for you. And you fall for him really online.
That is frightening. So it's the profiles that they build are really directed already towards you.
Absolutely. And once they have you online, they have what we call a storybook. So literally, no matter what you say to him online, he's literally flicking the pages over like I could be here, which you can't see me doing most of the time. and you say, well, I like sailing. And all of a sudden he has a storybook, they call it, in front of him saying, well, I've sailed in Greece, I've sailed in Turkey. Have you ever been there? And, already you're in awe with that thought and you're going, wow, this guy is really good. So what they do then over the next few months is they keep telling you the nice things you want to hear. They won't say anything that's going to put you off this relationship.
Like what? Like what, Pat? What kind of things are they saying?
For example, we had one guy built up a very, very good relationship with a lady, saying he was working off an oil rig off the West Cork coast. Now, he didn't do his maths very well because there are no oil rigs off the West Cork coast, as we know. But this lady didn't really want to know that it wasn't there. So he basically told her for many months that he was on an oil rig. He was after running out of money, and she started sending him some small amounts of money. And he promised when he'd finish on the oil rigs that he'd come back to her. We would often hear that he's just retired from a famous one over the years was retired from one of the wars in Asia or the Middle East, and he's returned to America. And you get this beautiful picture of guy in his combats. He looks about 45. You're in your 40s and you're going, wow, this is the guy for me. So they have no problem in spending weeks and months chatting to you. And we know from our own experience in law enforcement that they can be chatting to 5, 6, 7, 8 people at the one time, male, female, they're not worried. So they'll spend an hour with you, an hour with somebody else, an hour with somebody else, building up their knowledge and profile. Eventually what happens is when they realize that they have you hooked, and that's where the catfishing comes into it, when they have you hooked, they will then start trying to get some money out of you. So the first one might be something very simple. My child fell off a bike. They're gone into a hospital and I need €1,000 or $1,000. The second one they use is, I'm actually going to travel to see you, Hilary, in a couple of months' time. The only problem is my pension hasn't come through from the army yet. So I'm actually looking for a small loan from you. But the minute I get my pension from the army, I'll pay all this back to you, Hilary. So we've seen people pay out 5, 10, 20,000 euros for these people to travel to Ireland to meet them. Obviously, I think on one occasion, a guy did arrive, but then didn't transpire to be the person he was. But 99% of the time, they will not arrive in the country. In fact, 99% of the time, I'd safely say you will never see their face online. They'll always come up with an excuse that the internet is really bad here because I'm still fighting a war in Ukraine, or I'm on an oil rig in the North Sea. So you will never really see their face live. Now, I will put a caveat on that, Hilary. This was okay 2 years ago for me to say this, but with the invention of artificial intelligence, don't always presume that they won't come on live in some shape or format with AI. So that's a caution I would say to people with AI. Some of the people, and we've all seen it at this stage probably, they can mimic me online very well. It was done quite successfully last year this year actually, at a fraud conference in the RDS, where it was featured quite prominently in the newspapers, where Minister O'Donoghue was mimicked through AI, and it was really, really, really convincing.
Wow.
So what they do then is they try and get some small amounts of money out of you, or they're going to move home, they need shipping costs, and you get hit for 5, 10, 20, 30,000 euros, which you will never get back, and you will never see this person. Now, there's a bit of a twist to it then, in that if they know they've got you hooked, they also more recently have been offering you the opportunity of investing in something. And that's where the real big money comes into it. So they convince Hilary that I'm the new person in your life. I've really got a good deal from a friend of mine. If you invest 20 or 30,000 euros in this, whether it's, cryptocurrency or anything else, you have a real chance of making extra money here so that we can live forever more happily with all of this money we're going to make. And we have seen, Hilary, people, one lady I know has lost her house as a result of this in Ireland. I've spoken personally over the last 4 or 5 years to people who've lost every single penny of their retirement fund, which was maybe 40, 50, 60,000 euros. And, this is horrific from a number of point of views. The first point being that you've put all your trust into this person. You spend so much time online with them. and you think you're in a relationship that's going to work. And you find out all of a sudden that it's not going to work, that they don't exist. And secondly, you've lost a huge amount of your finances. So there's a real double-edged sword here for people. They're having a loss on two different sides, really.
Absolutely. It's not just an economic impact, but it's an emotional impact as well. If someone thinks they have been the victim of romance fraud, or perhaps they suspect they're currently in communication with someone that may lead to fraud eventually, what should they do? What steps should they take?
The first thing to do is to stop talking to this person. Secondly, if you have sent them any money, especially if you've sent them money in the last few days or few hours, please report it to your bank, number one, straight away, and to your Gardaí, local Gardaí, number two. And that needs to be done quickly. And the reason I say that is, if you send money to these people 4 or 5 days ago or weeks ago, there is a slim to nil chance of getting that money back ever. Whereas if you've sent money to these people in the last few hours or few days, there is some hope that it can be stopped in transit or recovered from an account, even if it's gone abroad. So that's what I would say. Stop straight away and think. And if you think over the years you have fallen for this, don't be afraid to go into a Garda station and report it. We have very, very well-trained members of Gardaí, they're going through Templemore, they're well able to deal with this. They do fraud training, they do cyber training. And, we ran a couple of courses there with UCD, and they're still ongoing while I was in Garda Síochána. And these Gardaí will deal with your case. They will make efforts to recover the money for you. But the main thing is that you stop giving this person any more of your time or any more of your money. Sometimes, especially when the investment end of it comes in, people are told, give us another 5,000 euros and we have a chance to recover all of your monies. You haven't. You will have no opportunity to recover your monies. So a few pointers I would say, Hilary, is when this person comes online, are they willing to put themselves up on a camera like you are here now to talk to me? Are they willing to do something like hold up the daily paper, in their country with the date on it? Something like that. And I would say to you, if they're not willing to put their face on the screen, if they're not willing to talk to you or come to meet you in person, why would you give them money? As I always throw it, there's not too many Irish boyfriends or partners look for money in the first couple of weeks or months of a relationship. So why would this person you meet online all of a sudden be looking for money? But just be aware, they don't always look for the money in the first few weeks or months. They will play you along until they know they've got you hooked. And it's then they look for the money. So my advice is absolutely nothing against online dating, meeting somebody online, but make sure the person is real. Make sure the person is a person you can trust, and you build up that trust obviously online, and then you may meet them. But I suppose separately to the fraud advices, when you're meeting a stranger for the first time, make sure you do it somewhere safe. Make sure there's a friend of yours maybe around the corner or nearby, because it is a dangerous world out there. So not just from a fraud point of view, we have other people online as well that will be looking for ulterior motives. But on the romance fraud, I would say just be careful how you deal with them, and especially when they ask you for money or funding to pay for their trip, to pay for their holiday over to you, to pay for their kid who's in the hospital, to pay for a blood transfusion for an elderly neighbour. These are all things that will pull at your heartstrings, and you'll think, oh, he's a really genuine guy or she's a really genuine person. So please think before you get rid of that money, because you won't get it back.
So the red flags are they willing to put themselves on camera? And indeed, I would it's probably best to stay on the platforms rather than go off the platforms and go onto WhatsApp or any private communication for a period of time. I imagine that would be something as well, Pat.
That would be something as well, absolutely. But again, I wouldn't rule out that they won't stay on the platform if you insist, because they will have, you said earlier on, Hilary, they will have a profile of certain types of people that they're targeting. They will not, Hilary, if you're putting up online that you're after losing your job, you don't have any money, you're looking to rent a house, but you're also looking to get a boyfriend, I can guarantee you they won't click on you because they know you've got no money. You put up online, I've just retired, my marriage has split up, I live in a nice house in wherever in Ireland, and I'm looking for a new friend. And all of a sudden, I guarantee you profiles will start matching you.
Mm. And where are the profiles coming from? I know, it's probably a big wide world of where they could come from, but is there a pattern that you're seeing when people are reporting it?
Well, if you asked me that question 5, 6 years ago, I would have said they're probably not in Ireland. They're
Mm.
probably coming from primarily parts of Africa and Asia. That's where the hub of all this is going on. But actually, with
Mm.
some help, over the last 4 or 5 years, 3 males were identified operating from Ireland. With some help from foreign law enforcement, we were able. It was during
Mm.
COVID, actually. We were able to identify where they were operating from. They were subsequently arrested, charged, and convicted, and
Great.
they were all
Mm.
living here in Ireland. The one interesting thing they had, or we were able to establish from investigations that they were live online with 7 different ladies at the time the Gardaí, searched their house. And when those
Oh.
people were interviewed, 3 of them actually were quite happy that this was a scam, but they were playing them along for the fun of it. So, there was probably nothing wrong with that,
Oh,
other than you were
God.
wasting your time,
Yeah.
you
Well,
know.
if it was in lockdown, maybe they were having a bit
But
of
the
fun.
other 4 ladies that were being targeted were very, very close to being defrauded of substantial amounts of money.
Oh my
And
goodness.
it was great to stop it before the money was sent. But they had committed quite a lot of crime against a lot of people other than those 7 people. And they were based
Wow.
in Ireland, operating from Ireland. And the money then would have been transferred out of Ireland at some stage. And we can come to that, I suppose, at some other stage when we talk about money mules. They have to get the money out of your account
Absolutely.
somehow. And they're not going to
Mm.
be silly enough to put the money into their own account. But this is big business. If any of your listeners wanted to Google this, um,
Mm.
in the USA, this is huge. In Ireland, it's
Mm.
quite substantial, but obviously we're a much smaller country. But globally, this is absolutely an enormous crime,
And
romance fraud.
presumably as well, they're gleaning information that maybe you might put up on your social media. So if you have, a social media account and you're putting up posts about, I don't know, having purchased this or having traveled there or your hobbies or interest, presumably they've done a search and they're gleaning all that information as well to add to their portfolio or their storybook or
Absolutely,
whatever it is.
100%, Hilary. So once they get Hilary Rose, this lady from Ireland, hooked, they then will
Mm.
keep doing their research on you. And I can guarantee you, before they call you tomorrow night at 9 o'clock, they'll have checked everything on you, what you've put on your Facebook, whether you've said, I've met a new man online, he's this, that, or the other. They
Mm.
will have all that done. They will know what you do, where you sleep, where you eat, literally. Whatever you put online, they'll be targeting that. And it's like anything. If I feed that back to you, you're going to go,
Mm.
wow, this guy is really interested in me and what I
Yeah,
do.
of
And
course.
I've been out cycling the weekend. All of a sudden, he'll say, I actually got out for a cycle and a walk the weekend myself. What about yourself, Hilary? And all of a
Mm.
sudden, the conversation comes back to the cycle that you did at the weekend. But he knows you went
Mm.
cycling because you put it up on Facebook or a picture with all your girlfriends or whatever. So yeah, I
Yeah.
would say be very careful what we post on social media. And
Mm.
look, we all do it on Facebook, on Instagram, and other forums, and it's probably too much information sometimes we put up there,
Mm.
especially when
Mm.
we're going on holidays and things. So if you think of it, and I had this discussion with a journalist about 4 or 5 years ago, and she claimed to me that you will not find any footprint of me on social media. She says you won't be able to see where I live, what dogs we have in the house, where we go on holidays. And I said, that's
Mm.
okay, but you've got 2 daughters called Mary and Joan. Have they got Facebook accounts? And she said, yes. And I said, do they
Mm.
post pictures of your puppy dog, of your garden, of your house? And all of a sudden she realized that she didn't have a footprint, but her 2 daughters had quite a substantial footprint with her picture all over them. So
My God.
we're
And
not
it's
as
not,
squeaky clean on social media as we think we are. That
yeah.
we do exist there, and we probably have quite a large footprint. Not frightening you, Hilary, now because you probably have quite a large footprint on social media.
Well, I do because I'm in, I have a public profile. So, but I do retain everything quite privately. Everything on social media is mostly to do with work,
Yeah.
I don't put my kids up in a way. I
But
don't
you can
put,
imagine what you have up on social media, and I haven't examined it and I don't intend to.
Thank you,
But can you
Pat.
imagine if I went in to a site with you online, armed with all of the stuff you've done on podcasts and everything, I could really sell it to you that I'm actually a good podcaster myself, and I'm not. But I mean, I could sell it to you that I'm an expert in this whole area of podcasting, and I've done one in London, I've done one in Paris, and then you might say, where are they? And I'd say, well, they've been taken down because of some issue with my boss at work or something like that. That's they'll always have a story, Hilary. So
There's
I would
always a
say
story, yeah.
male, female, young, old, whether you're 16 to 80. We've had people, while I was in Garda Síochána, we've had people up into their 80s who've succumbed to this type of fraud.
That's
And
devastating. It's
not a
devastating at that
scam.
age of your life. Yeah.
As I always say, it's not a scam. It's not anything else other than theft of your money by deception.
Wow.
And you need to report it to your local Garda station, or if it's abroad, report it to the local police.
Pat, what's the emotional impact of something like that, of a crime like that?
Huge. I've spoken to a few people, both male and female, that have fallen for this over the years, and it's very traumatic, as I said, on two fronts. It's massive fallout for the person, especially if they put 6 or 8 months or 12 months of their life into this relationship online. So it's really, really, and they do need help, and they will need counselling in some cases. Forget about the money aspect of it. The money aspect of it is horrendous, because they 9 times out of 10 they've lost a substantial amount of their life savings. And as I say to you, these are quite intelligent people, because otherwise they wouldn't have savings of X amount to spend or to give away to somebody. So they're traumatized really on two fronts. But more importantly, I think they're traumatized on the personal and the psychological effect that it has on them. So I would say to anybody listening, Hilary, if you are one of those people that has been in a relationship, is in a relationship, has been defrauded, please do something. Don't just try and keep it to yourself. Get out there and talk to, as I say, stop the payments in your bank, go to Garda Síochána. You will be treated really well, I can promise you, by both of those entities. And banks and law enforcement are very well aware of this type of crime at this stage.
Because I feel like shame would be the number one thing that would stop people from seeking help in this respect. And I don't think there's any shame in that. I think it can, like you said, it can happen to anybody. It can happen to the smartest of people. Maybe it's just something they're going through. And the guys out there are, they've done their research and they are just on this occasion outsmarted you in this respect. It's really, really awful. You did mention at one point talking about money mules and money laundering. So when fraud, when you're defrauded of the money has to go somewhere. And like you said, it doesn't go into their account. They're clever enough not to put it into their account. So it has to go elsewhere. You raised a point with me when we talked privately, which I found very frightening. And this is for parents or guardians of teenagers or children who have access to the internet and their own bank accounts, like we'll say the Revoluts of the world or whatever they're using. And they have unwittingly become money mules, and they're money laundering for organised crime. Tell us about that, please, because this is really frightening for me, I think.
Yes, we spoke about it very briefly. And what I would say is the money mule to me is like the drug mule. So the organised drugs gangs over the years were never, ever really keen on transporting the drugs themselves, because if they got caught, they went to jail. So they got somebody that owed them money, or that was willing to do a transfer of drugs for money. And the money mule is the most important cog in the wheel of any fraudster, whether it's romance fraud, investment fraud, or any other type of fraud. If I steal money from you, Hilary, and I get you to send it out of your bank account today, I am not going to get it put into Pat Lordan's bank account, because my photograph, my date of birth, my address, and everything about me is attached to that bank account. So when the Gardaí come looking for the money, it goes straight into Pat Lordan's bank account, and he's identifiable. So I need to get a money mule account so that I can get the money out of your account into a mule account, and then out of that account in cash if possible, or transferred abroad. So money mule is the most important cog. Now, I know you said there in the introduction that sometimes these people are money mules and they don't know about it. That is possibly true. But from our experience, while I was in law enforcement and some work I've done since then, our experience would be that majority of the people know that they're becoming a money mule. They may not know the extent of what they're doing and to what level it is within an organised crime group. But I'll give you an example of a very recent survey carried out by FraudSmart through the Banking Payments Federation Ireland. So they reckon that 44 million euros has been laundered through mule accounts in the last 3 years, up to the start of this year.
That's huge.
So that's 44 million. And I don't think myself that that's everything that should be accounted for. But that's a very, very enormous figure. So that money involves approximately 9,000 money mules. So 9,000 people in this country have laundered that 44 million for an organised crime gang. So basically that money has come from people like Hilary, who was in a romantic relationship with Pat and has been scammed and lost 30,000 euros. It comes from online fraud. It comes from investment fraud. But the money that was laundered is 44 million and has gone through 9,000 accounts. Now, whose accounts are these? Some of these accounts could be people like Hilary, who's been in a relationship with Pat, and Pat uses her account to launder money. That has happened as well. It could be Pat, who's in his early 20s, who gave his friend his bank account unwittingly to put his grant from his college into it. But the majority of them are younger people who have openly and honestly given their account details to somebody to put money into it. And then they've taken the money out for them and they've handed over the money to them. So I would say unwittingly, Hilary, is not always the case. They know what they're doing. And I think that's very, very important because, you know, saying I didn't know what was going to happen to the money is not really a defense, because there's a word in the legislation which says reckless. And most of these teenagers, I would say, and young people and older people that do it are reckless. So part of the survey that was carried out by Banking Payments Federation Ireland recently was that 61% of parents, and this is really calling out parents that listen to your podcast, Hilary, 61% of parents have never mentioned this to their children. Never. They've never mentioned the dangers of allowing somebody else to have access to your bank account. They've never said to them, don't let anybody put money into your bank account because it's traceable back to you. Now, the other startling figure that came out of that was that about 50% of the 18 to 24-year-olds have either been approached by these criminals or their friends or their organisers to become a money mule. Now, what do they get in return if you become a money mule? You might get a couple of €100. You might get the cost of a new phone. You might get a new jacket. They'll sell you or offer to give you something small, but you need the money. You're in college and you take a chance on it. What I would urge people is please don't, because that 20,000 euros that you've let go into your account has been attained by this organised crime group by way of fraud, by way of romance fraud, or something more sinister. It could be drugs money. You don't know. You have no idea where it's coming from. You know where it's going because you're handing it back to the criminal or you're transferring it. The scary thing about this is that all of these money mules are traceable. So really, if the Gardaí had time and resources, those 9,000 people would be interviewed, arrested and prosecuted. Now, they will probably never get to all of those 9,000, but they're getting to a lot of them. And you never know when you're going to be the one they're going to knock on the door next and say, you've laundered money for an organised crime group. You're going to be arrested. You're going to be charged. And sometimes you'll end up in jail. But more importantly, you get a conviction for money laundering and terrorist financing, which is what you've done. And you are not going to a lot of countries in this global scale when they hear that or see that on your CV. So that's quite scary for young people.
Absolutely. So the approach is so organised crime gangs will approach young people or older people, whoever they think that they can get to do their bidding. Essentially, they'll approach them. They'll offer them some kind of reward, like a couple of €100 or items that they're interested in or whatever it might be. They'll lodge that money into their account. So they give them their account details. The money goes into that, and then they physically take out the cash and hand it back to them. Hey, if you're enjoying this podcast and you'd like to show us your support, if you like, you could buy us a coffee using the Buy Me a Coffee app or online at buymeacoffee.com/livewildpodcast, or just click the link in our show notes. It will take you there. Alternatively, you could like, subscribe, or share the show with your mates or on social media. It really helps us bring you the very best show. Thank you so much for your help.
In a lot of cases, yes. So, Hilary, what happens is, say you're the victim of the romance fraud. He needs to give you an account that's not his own account. So he gives you the details of a money mule account, and you transfer your money to that. The money mule then, be it your son, daughter, sister, brother, whoever they are then asked by the organised crime group to transfer that money to another account or cash it out and hand over the cash. Or in some cases, they might be asked to buy some products, some electrical goods, and hand that over. But more often than not, it's cash they're looking for. The interesting thing about that is they won't put a sign over the door saying, we're an organised crime group looking for your bank account. They'll say, look, come up with a scenario. I'm getting some money in from abroad. I don't have a bank account. Can we use yours? Normally, it's as simple as that. And people fall for it to some extent. But
are they people they know? Are they people they know?
No. So, for example, it might be on a row of houses in a street. Okay. So they'll go to number 1, 2, 3, 4. Might be kids at school that know them. Some of these people might be living on your road. Some of them might be in your college. Some of them, more recently, I've heard of a case where I was actually in London recently at a conference, and the lady said, we're seeing an enormous amount of money mules in this part of the UK. And I said, we chatted a while anyway, and lo and behold, the penny dropped with her that they're all after coming in from abroad, working in a factory. And obviously, they've all been approached within the factory. They're all from, I think, Italy or a part of Europe.
Yeah.
So they've obviously been approached by somebody within the factory to hand over their details, and they're all getting a couple of €100 for it because 15 or 20 of her money mules are all working in the one factory. And that's really what it is.
Yeah,
so, they might meet a gang of people at a Christmas party, and they do it on social media as well. They put up, make some easy money for Christmas, buy a new monsoon jacket, or what's the one, the big fluffy one, I can't think of the name.
North Face? Is it North Face?
No, they wouldn't wear North Face now, Hilary. They're gone way up market from that. Some of our people, yeah, absolutely. I know it's the one in Kildare Village.
Canada Goose or something, is it?
Canada Goose and all that, yeah.
Sorry,
absolutely.
North Face. Sorry about that now. Canada Goose and
North
Face.
You can imagine rocking up into any one of the colleges and saying, would you like a new Canada Goose jacket for Christmas? 900 or 1,000 euros or more. And they go, well, what do I need to do? Well, I've got a friend transferring 25,000 euros in here. Can you look after it and give it to me when you cash it out? Banks are doing really good work in some of this area and trying to stop some of these mule accounts with transaction monitoring and everything else. But, people really, really need to realize that the minute you give your bank account details to somebody for something like this, you're now helping an organised crime group. And these are not just a little old fraudster in a backstreet garage somewhere. These are top-of-the-range, global, organised crime groups operating with you in your community. You might have seen there over the last 12 months a huge amount of money mules down in Kerry. So this is not just Dublin. This is all over the country. Every county in the country has been affected by money mules. And if you're a huge operation done in Kerry.
Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
There was a huge operation carried out in Kerry there in relation to money mules, and it was quite successful. And a lot of awareness raising was attained as a result of it.
Good. I think it's an awareness, and that's the thing. If you're a parent or a guardian of a teenager or a young adult, and you're, what are the red flags that parents need to look out for, and what are the conversations they need to be having with their kids about this stuff?
Well, again, going back to FraudSmart, we've done a lot of work with them while I was in Gardaí, and I see it's being continued in what's called Don't Be a Mule. And the Minister for Higher Education, I think, launched it. And I think he was re-elected recently, so he's probably going to get the same job again, possibly. But that's the type of awareness we need. We need to get parents talking to their teenagers and their kids and saying, don't ever give access to your account to anybody. But you also need really some more work being carried out in the schools. And they do a lot of very good work in the UK. And I mentioned that conference I was at, where they go into the schools and they talk to the kids and they raise the awareness from the age of about 13, 14. We need to be doing a bit more on that. We're starting to do it with road safety, and absolutely road safety is vitally important. But the amount of money that's being taken out of the Irish economy and global economy every year is enormous. So we really, really need to be educating our younger people the dangers of this. Because without the money mule, they cannot get your money, Hilary. They will struggle to get it.
Okay.
And some of the work we've done over the years in Gardaí force these people to look at other jurisdictions, to look at other countries, when the banks and the Garda National Economic Crime Bureau came down quite hard on the money mules. But it has to be continuous work, because if you know you have a new batch of 15-year-olds every year, so they need to be educated every year, 15, 16, 17 years of age. And 18, 19 is too late. By the time they get there to that, they've probably succumbed to being targeted as a money mule. So I would say to parents, sit down with your kids this weekend, have a chat with them. Has anybody ever asked you to put money into your bank account? And it needn't be a bank account, it can be Revolut. We see Revolut being targeted as well, because lots of us have Revolut account, and absolutely really essential, I think, to have something like that for transferring money to kids. And I know kids can have their own Revolut account with certain restrictions on it. But ask the question, has anybody at school ever asked you to put money into their account? Or has anybody offered you anything to put money into your account? And just sit down nice and leisurely with them and talk to them and say, please don't allow anybody to do this. And if anybody approaches you again, go to your teacher or go to the parents. Because it's as easy as that to stop it.
And presumably then a red flag would be if they do come home with a Canada Goose and you didn't buy it for them.
Absolutely. And that has happened. Some of the media campaigns that was carried out by ourselves in economic crime, we actually asked parents and asked people to come to the Garda station if you've been the victim of money muling or if you've been a money mule. And actually quite a lot of people walked into Garda station and said, actually, 2 months ago, I was asked to put 20 grand into my account. And at least then you've come up front and you've been honest with the Gardaí, and you have some hope of getting a lenient dealing, I suppose, by a judge or by the juvenile liaison scheme in Garda Síochána, because you've come up and offered yourself up really as being a potential victim of this crime.
Particularly if it's first time, everybody makes mistakes. So I would imagine.
Absolutely. And I mean, a lot of our younger people get dealt with under the juvenile liaison diversion scheme, as it's called now. And that's why it's there, to give people a chance. But the thing we see, Hilary, is they've done it once, they've done it twice, they've done it 3 times, and there go your chances. There go your chances normally.
Feels like
so I would say to people out there, and there are lots of really good kids there, 15, 16, 17, holding down regular jobs, whether it's McDonald's or anywhere else, they're working. They're working for a reason, because there's no such thing as easy money. Absolutely. Whether you're a child or adult, there's no such thing as easy money. And again, that brings me to, the awareness is vital. And our schools, and if there's any teachers listening here, Hilary, they need to be raising this subject. I don't know, when I was young, it was civics we did at school. I'm not sure whether they call it now.
I don't
know, these actually. Types of issues should be raised, because they're, I give the example that about 5 years ago, I gave a talk to a college where a group of students were finishing their computer training. And at the end of 4 years training, nobody in that college had mentioned the word cybercrime or fraud to these people. And as we know, most of these frauds are cyber enabled. There's a computer or a phone being used in carrying them out in some shape or format. So parents, I would say, sit down and talk to your kids. As young as 12, you need to talk to them and get their awareness going.
Very good. Okay, so for people then, like we'll say, you or me, everybody's gotten these emails. The emails of, you've just won the lottery, you've just inherited a heap of cash from a relative you didn't know anything about. If only you just hand over your bank account details. How do people get caught by emails like that? And what's the process again? And how do we avoid it?
Yeah, so I actually got one this morning, which is really interesting. So having worked in money laundering and terrorist financing Somewhere, obviously, along the way, somebody decided that might have some contact with the International Monetary Fund. And this morning, they've sent me a beautiful email to say that my payment from the International Monetary Fund is awaiting some information to be inputted. I've never worked for the IMF. I'd love to have worked for the one, where the IMF was in the film. Never did that type of work, really. But you just have to realize, number one, don't open this. Don't open the email. The email will do no harm on your phone or your computer, but don't open it because potentially there's a link there. So if you get an email from something or somebody that's not recognizable to you, my advice is don't open it, especially if there's a link in it. The link is the danger. So a very easy thing to do is, if I send you an email, Hilary, and it's my email is patlordan@gmail.com. So I send you an email, that comes up as an email from patlordan@gmail.com. Now, if you hover your mouse over that email, it will tell you where that email is really coming from, the URL for that email, because it's very easy for me to set up a new email at joeblogs.com and send you an email pretending it's from Pat Lordan. But if you hover over the Pat Lordan one and it comes up as Joe Blogs, you should automatically go, hello, what's wrong here? So a perfect way of checking this out is if you get one of these do not reply emails.
Yes.
So you'll see an email, say, from the ESB, Electricity Supply Board, or Electric Ireland might send you an email. And if you put your mouse and hover your cursor over the email from Electric Ireland, it probably won't come up as electricireland@gmail.com. It'll probably come up as do not reply. So in other words, you can't reply to this email. So if you're dealing with me, say in a romance fraud, and I say to you, I'm Pat Lordan, can you send me €2,000? And I send you an email and it says Pat Lordan, and you go, I wonder, is this Pat? And then you click on the email and it says it's 452739@gmail.com. You should automatically smell a small mouse rather than a rat at that stage, that there's something not right here. And as you said, Hilary, red flags really are what are there. Now, winning the money is a scary thing really for me, because I remember about 5 years ago, this lady decided she had won the Spanish lottery. She got an email to say she was going to get €250,000 from the Spanish lottery. And some of the detectives that were working with me at the time spent about 2 hours convincing her that she hadn't won the lottery, because she'd never been in Spain. She'd never done the Spanish lottery. So therefore, she couldn't have won the Spanish lottery. Yeah. But she wanted a guarantee in writing from the Gardaí that if this was not true, that they would cover the €250,000 if she had won the Spanish lottery. So I'm just using that as how people can be so convinced that there's potentially a mistake made by somebody in the Spanish lottery, that Hilary Rose from Ireland has won €200,000. And this comes what we used to call Nigerian letters way back 35 years ago when I worked in fraud. We got these letters, or everyone got these letters saying you're entitled to an inheritance of €100,000. And people lost a lot of money to them. The only difference between then and now is now they're coming in an email to you.
Yeah. And nobody else can see them really. So it's even more secretive and insidious, isn't it?
It is, absolutely, because sometimes you show the letter to somebody, but we're very slow to show this email because we think we're after landing on the pig's back and we're flying it. Emails, do you trust emails? And it's something I'm quite terrified of, is emails. And over the years, I've seen an awful lot of emails cause a lot of harm to people. And when I say harm, I mean an email from your solicitor or your accountant. And I'll give you one very good example. I know I'm straying away a little bit from what you're talking about for coming up to the Christmas, but I think it's important to highlight this. A husband and wife that were selling and buying a house, they basically got an email from their solicitor to say you can now transfer the funds to purchase your house.
Oh, no.
So they went down to the bank, they did everything right, ticked all the boxes, right account, everything, and transferred over €600,000 because their own sale of their house had gone through a couple of months earlier.
Oh.
That night, They were delighted. They drank some wine because they now had purchased a new house in Dublin for 650 or 60,000 euros. And the next morning, they rang the solicitor to know, when can we collect the keys of the house? And he says, I have no idea. That legal problem has not been sorted yet. We probably won't have the keys for another month or two.
Oh my God.
So you can imagine the feeling now that lady had. But she did everything right. She did everything right. Herself and her husband went down to the bank straight away, looked for a recall of the money. The money was gone too far through the system. The bank couldn't recall it. They reported it in. Luckily, somebody somewhere made the right phone call into one of the people working with me in economic crime. The financial intelligence unit there was able to make contact with the banks abroad. And through help with our colleagues abroad, within about 4 hours, over 500,000 of the money had been recovered. And subsequently, the majority of the money was recovered the next day.
Thank
But
God.
another
You'd be
12 hours,
sick.
another 12 hours, Hilary, and that I spoke to that lady herself, and she said, I'd been living on the side of the road. She says, after working and retiring and spending all my life saving with my husband. So I use that example, and I know she'll have no problem because she was a very, very happy lady
Yeah,
at
I
the end of
bet.
the day. And I would urge anybody, do not send money to any account that's on an email without first picking up the phone and checking with your bank, with your solicitor, or with your accountant. Is this really the number? And I was very impressed with a company last week. They rang me and said, is this the account you need to put this money into? It was only a small amount of money, but they double checked. They didn't just rely on the account I had given them. So that is very important, I think, to do. Do not base your transfer on an email alone.
And I think as well, what's happening is that, say now, if I had a wage that was due to me and I wanted to change the account that it was going into, perhaps I would have emailed my employer and said, this is the new account that it's going into. But those emails coming from you are actually being intercepted. And then they're cutting and pasting a brand new account on it. So effectively, the wage that I wanted to come into my new account is now going into a fraudster's account.
Yes, and we've seen it with just one-off weekly pay packets. We've seen that happen. Okay, they won't get away with that for long because Hilary will pick up the phone and say, I didn't get paid this week. What's wrong? But, if that was a monthly pay packet and they got into a system, they have done it. They have done it, absolutely. Yeah. And they did quite a lot of this during COVID. Especially during COVID, they seemed to succeed a lot because everybody was working from home. People weren't in the office to check things out. I would say, would I send anybody money, even small amount of money, based on an IBAN included in an email? I would not. I would definitely pick up the phone and say, Hilary, I owe you 200 euros. Is this the right number for you? There is also a way, Hilary, of checking your IBAN, a little bit like hovering over the email to see, is this really the email it says it is on the 10? You can also put, it's called IBAN Checker, and there's loads of them out there. You can really put your IBAN into it. So all of our Irish IBANs will start with IE.
Yep.
And if you put in the IBAN, no matter what country it is, and I've done it recently with a country that I was going to a sailing competition, and it was Croatia. So I put in the IBAN that the guy had sent me, even though I knew I'd sent money to this account a year earlier. And I put in HR, which is Croatia, and it tells me his account is in Zagreb. So that's not a guarantee that it's not bogey. But at least I knew it wasn't a criminal in Ireland looking to put the money into an Irish account. Right. It might be another criminal in Croatia who's got into the system. But you're 100% right. They've got into Pat Lordan or Hilary's email, and they're changing the details. They're diverting the emails. So you won't get the right email. You'll get the one that they've changed the detail on it. So going back to that house purchase, everything was right. The bill, the details, everything was exactly the same. The only thing they had changed was the account that it's to be paid into, and it's to be paid into it today. So yeah, solicitors definitely over the years have been targeted. Accountants, insurance companies have been targeted. So just be very, very careful if you're sending the money. If you're receiving the money, it's different. You don't have to worry. Once you get the money in and you're due it, that's okay. But definitely people working in pay offices, financial control, they need to be aware of all of these types of emails coming in, and I'll stray into CEO fraud into your CTO, your chief technical officer, or your boss. So we see a lot this time of the year, Hilary. You've started a new job, you're working in an office in Dublin, and all of a sudden you get an email from the boss or your boss saying, would you mind going down the road? I'm out at the moment at dinner, and purchase €500 worth of iTunes vouchers. And this email is not from your boss. Then she'll tell you, will you email the details of these vouchers to this email? You do it because you're new in the office. And they always seem to be lucky. They always seem to get the new person in the office. The reason this is top of my mind is only 2 weeks ago, a friend of mine rang me, said he employed a new graduate, and lo and behold, this is exactly the email he got. He said, please, can you purchase €500 worth of iTunes vouchers and transfer them to this? It's a Christmas present for somebody. So coming up to the Christmas, we're going to see a lot of that type of stuff. You're going to see a huge increase in online scams, online shopping. I think the figures from last year is that this year so far, I think about 1 in 5 online shoppers have lost money.
Wow, so that's a huge number.
That can be small amounts of money or large amounts of money. So I'm not a great online shopper, so I don't know a huge amount about what the risks are there. But you hear so many stories about the product didn't arrive. You know, it must be DPD or it must be unpost. No, it's not. You just went onto a site that doesn't exist. They've taken your money and you're never going to see your goods. And I think there is a bit of a move back towards going to the shop and buying the goods a little bit. I hope there is, because I think, some of our towns are dying on their feet really because we're all shopping online. So just beware before you buy that, as I used to say, buy that frock or that dress or those pair of shoes. Are you really going to take delivery of these? Are they going to be what it says on the tin? Absolutely. If it's a reputable company and reputable website you've dealt with before, there's probably no risk in it. But
if it's too good to be true, then maybe it's just too good to be true.
Absolutely. So you will also get a lot of emails from people purporting to be Unpost and all of that. And actually, I got one only a couple of months ago from Unpost, and I was very, very impressed with the service they provided through Facebook. Actually, you're able to send a request back into Unpost to verify was this real or not. And within about 15 minutes, Unpost themselves came back and said, no, this is a scam. Do not engage.
Oh, good.
So I was very impressed. Dundeel is another entity where you'll see a lot of scams, but they have a really, really good system for weeding out the scammers and the fraudsters. Okay. So again, I would call on people, when you suspect there's something wrong, report it to Unpost, report it to Dundeel, report it to your bank. Because if, you may be the first person that was attacked with this type of fraud, and you could save somebody else from losing money.
Absolutely. Pat, I feel like we could do a second episode of this because there's so much more to talk about. But I just want to ask about yourself. I mean, you've retired now, but you're obviously still working in some capacity and spreading the good word. What motivated you to get into the Crime Bureau in the first place?
The reason I moved into the Garda Bureau of Fraud Investigation, as it was known in 2015, was that I got promoted. And the commissioner of the day decided I should move in there, that it might be something worthwhile looking at. And that's really, I hadn't looked for it. I had worked there many years previous as a young detective back in the early 90s. I didn't particularly like the fraud work at that time. But I must say, from the time I moved in there in 2015 until I retired in 2022, I really, really enjoyed it. And what really made it enjoyable, I think, for me, is we focused a lot on the victims and recovering the money for the victims of crime, which doesn't happen in a lot of other countries. There is, I think, too much of a focus on, investigate the crime. Don't worry where the money is gone. Don't worry about the victim too much. We're all very busy. So Hilary made a mistake. She was greedy. She shouldn't have really got in that relationship online. What can we do about it? But I think I hope there's a different attitude adopted by An Garda Síochána towards the victims of crime. And really, the joy for me was, whether it was €1,000 for a phone you purchased online that you got back, or €100,000 or €1,000,000. It was the same satisfaction for me to see the smile or to get a phone call from somebody and say, thanks a lot. And there's one jumped out at me in my time there, was a guy who had lost 125,000 euros in a fraud. And he rang when we got the money back from him and said, without that money, my business was closing down and 5 people would have lost their jobs before Christmas. That's a few years back.
Yeah.
But that to me would give you the incentive to go on with it, And also, we spend a lot of time and money tracking down the drugs gangs and all of the other criminal organizations out there. We are not, and still are not, putting enough effort into tracking down the criminals and the fraudsters. There's good work being done by the Garda National Economic Crime Bureau, as it's known now, Criminal Assets Bureau and others, but not enough is being put into it. When you look at the money that's taken, can you imagine if 44 million was stolen in bank robberies over the last 3 years?
Yeah.
Can you imagine the commitment of resources that would be put standing outside of every bank in Dublin and around the country?
Yeah.
And that's what has moved, and we haven't moved with it. And these criminals are living a real luxurious life in many other countries on the strength of stealing from Irish citizens. And we really, really need to do a lot of work on it. Some good plans are in place, hopefully for 2025. And I hope there's more of a commitment from our new government, whoever they may be, into the fraud area. And I think awareness is what it's all about. Just everybody has to knock on the door of the bank and the politicians and the Gardaí and say, we need more done about this.
Well, look, hopefully there'll be a little bit more awareness with this podcast as well. I'm hoping it'll reach some people and the information too. So thank you so much, Pat, for coming on. I want to ask you, so at the end of the Live Wild podcast, I always do a little quick fire round, okay? It's just for fun. Are you ready, Pat Lordan, for the Live Wild quick fire round?
Yes, I'm ready.
What do you stand for?
I stand for fairness and for victims of crime.
If you were to distill yourself down to an essence, what would that essence be?
Honesty and commitment.
What is the wildest thing you've ever done?
Rallied over the mountains in Kerry at over 100 miles an hour as a navigator.
That's pretty wild, fair enough. What's the one thing you do every day to help you live wild and free?
Walk.
Pat Lordan, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for being here. We hope you enjoyed listening as much as we enjoyed making these episodes. Thank you, as always, to our amazing guests. A special thank you to Aoife McNamara, my co-producer extraordinaire from Imagine Media. Please like, share, subscribe, and rate us. It all really helps. And remember, this content is for education and entertainment purposes. In short, it's not gospel. I always say, take what resonates with you and leave the rest. Always question everything and do your own research.